In 1971, $1 could buy a full meal. Today, you'd need $7.25 for the same lunch. In ancient Rome, emperors diluted silver coins to pay debts, sparking riots. The same story repeats. When money loses trust, everything costs more. Your shrinking pizza slice is proof that inflation never really left your table. Why does your pizza shrink without you noticing? Imagine slicing your favorite pizza into 8 perfect pieces. A year later, you buy the same pizza, but something feels off. Your slices look thinner, yet the price is unchanged. In 1971, a single US dollar could fetch a piping hot cheese pizza, rich with toppings and enough to share. By 2021, that same dollar barely buys a few bites. This invisible change is called inflation, and it quietly steals a little more each time you pay. And in Argentina today, prices can rise twice a month. In 2023, their inflation rate topped 100%. Families saw the cost of meat double between grocery trips. If you ever wondered why your parents talk about back in my day, this is why. They really did get more for less. To picture this, think about Germany in the 1920s. Hyperinflation grew so extreme that a loaf of bread cost 250 marks in January and 200 billion marks by November. People burned banknotes in stoves because firewood was more expensive than paper money. Venezuela faced a similar crisis in 2018, when prices rose over 65,000% in 12 months. Whole paychecks vanished in days. This isn't ancient history, it's a recurring pattern. Every time governments create new money, like printing trillions during a crisis, it floods the economy, making each dollar weaker. Suddenly, the same pizza shop must charge more to stay afloat. You might think, but my paycheck grows too. Sometimes it does, but usually not as fast. That's why your money feels smaller, and your slices look sadder. If you pause to imagine a world where your pizza shrinks each year while you pretend it's the same size, you'll start to see why this matters. And there's something more unsettling. Most people never even notice it happening. Now, let's uncover who controls this slow vanishing act and why they rarely explain it in plain words. Your slice didn't just shrink by accident. Someone decided how much buying power to drain away. Next, you'll meet the hidden team behind the curtain. Who's secretly deciding the size of your slice? When you walk into a pizzeria, you assume the shop owner sets the price. But what if the real decisions happen far away, in closed rooms filled with powerful people you've never met? In 1913, the United States created the Federal Reserve, a central bank with the power to print money and change interest rates. It was meant to stabilize the economy, but over time, its influence became enormous. During the 2008 financial crisis, the Fed created over $2 trillion, almost overnight. In 2020, during the pandemic, it added another $3 trillion. All those dollars flowed into banks, loans, and stimulus checks. Imagine you're a baker. Flour costs rise because more dollars chase the same amount of wheat. Soon you have to charge extra for each pizza slice. Multiply that by every shop, and you see how prices quietly climb. The European Central Bank and the Bank of Japan do the same thing. Japan's central bank famously kept interest rates near zero for decades, hoping to kickstart spending. In Zimbabwe, leaders printed so much currency that billion-dollar notes became worthless. In Syria, civil war and a collapsing economy caused their pound to lose 98% of its value in under a decade. Now, a sack of bread costs more than a teacher's monthly salary. It sounds like science fiction, but it happened just 15 years ago. Most people don't realize central banks have so much control. The money in your wallet is just paper, and it only holds value because everyone believes it does. When that faith weakens, prices explode. Economist Milton Friedman once said, "Inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon." His words still echo through every shrinking pizza box. The paradox is that creating new money can feel good at first. More cash in your pocket feels like wealth, until you realize your dollars no longer stretch as far. It's the same as adding extra dough to pizza. The slice looks bigger, but the crust is hollow. And here's the hidden twist. These decisions are made by a small group of policymakers who rarely face a vote from you. Before you assume this can't touch your life, remember, millions of people thought the same right before their money lost value. You've already learned secrets most people ignore their whole lives. Few take the time to see who really pulls the strings behind every price tag. But what comes next will reveal the strangest part. Why making too much money sometimes leaves you with almost nothing. Why does more dough make your pizza worth less? Think about this. What if every person in town suddenly had a giant pile of pizza dough? You'd expect bigger, better pizzas. But soon, your slice would taste like air. This is exactly how inflation works when too much money pours in at once. In Germany's Weimar Republic after World War I, leaders printed so many banknotes to pay war debts that the currency collapsed. A loaf of bread cost 160 marks in late 1922. By November 1923, it was over 200 billion marks. Parents sent children to shop with wheelbarrows piled high with worthless bills. Fast forward to Hungary, 1946. The pengo became so devalued that prices doubled every 15 hours. Shopkeepers changed price tags several times a day. In Venezuela's crisis between 2016 and 2019, a cup of coffee jumped from 450 bolivars to over 1 million bolivars just in 1 year. And in Sudan, by 2023, inflation reached over 200%, following years of economic collapse and conflict. Bank withdrawals were limited, and cash became nearly useless for everyday life. People carried stacks of money wrapped in string because wallets were too small. This isn't some distant problem. Even in the United States, the cost of everyday goods has climbed steadily. In 1970, the average price of a large cheese pizza was about $1.50. By 2020, it reached nearly $14. The dollar lost over 85% of its purchasing power. You might feel you have more money than your grandparents, but in reality, your dollars buy fewer slices. The contradiction is powerful. More money in your hand should feel like freedom, but when everyone has more, your share shrinks. Your dollars become a race against time, always trying to catch up with rising prices. Imagine saving for years, only to discover your savings now buy half as much. That's why some call inflation a silent tax, a force that robs quietly, without a vote or a law. There's an even stranger part. Sometimes, people think printing money is the fastest way to fix problems. But history shows it often ends with empty shelves and frightened crowds. Coming up, you'll see how companies hide this erosion from you, so you keep feeling full while your slice keeps vanishing. How do shops trick you into thinking nothing changed? Open your kitchen cupboard and pick up a box of cereal. It probably looks the same as last year, same bright colors, same happy mascot. But look closer, it's thinner, lighter, emptier. This quiet shrinking has a name: shrinkflation. It's a way for companies to avoid raising the price tag while giving you less product. During the 1970s oil crisis, many brands quietly reduced package sizes. A bar of soap that once weighed 150 grams shrank to 135 grams, and then 125 grams, all while prices stayed steady. Customers rarely noticed. Today, this trick is everywhere. A famous example, Toblerone chocolate bars in Britain widen the gaps between peaks to save chocolate, without changing the outer box. In the US, a large orange juice bottle that used to hold 64 ounces now carries 59 ounces. Even pizza boxes have shrunk in diameter by small amounts, just enough that most people never measure. In countries facing rapid inflation like Argentina and Lebanon, shops sometimes remove price tags entirely because prices change daily, even hourly. It's shrinkflation mixed with price chaos. The strategy works because the brain judges value by size and familiarity. When packaging looks unchanged, we assume the product is too, but this illusion hides a slow erosion of your buying power. Economist Pippa Malmgren once said, "Shrinkflation is inflation's sneaky cousin. It doesn't just affect snacks. Toilet paper rolls have lost dozens of sheets, yogurt cups shrank from 8 ounces to 5.3, all while advertising celebrates the same low price." Imagine spending your paycheck on groceries, only to learn your cart holds 20% less food. That's shrinkflation. It preys on trust and routine, and it's one reason you feel like your money disappears faster every year. If you knew how often this tactic appears, you'd probably check every label twice. But there's something hopeful. When you understand it, you can spot it before it empties your wallet. Next, you'll discover whether there's any way to protect your slice from shrinking further, and how some people fight back. Can you stop your pizza from disappearing? Think about saving your allowance in a jar, only to discover each coin shrinks overnight. This is exactly how inflation erodes your money's power while you sleep.
People have tried many ways to protect their slices. One of the oldest is buying gold. For thousands of years, gold held value even when currencies collapsed. During Germany's hyperinflation, families who owned gold coins were able to buy food when their paper marks became worthless. In Venezuela, many turned to US dollars and cryptocurrency to survive 65,000% annual price increases. In the United States, some families invest in stocks. Since 1926, the S&P 500, an index of America's biggest companies, has returned about 10% per year on average. This growth often beats inflation over time. Imagine planting seeds in your backyard that grow bigger every year, instead of shrinking like your pizza slice. But no method is perfect. Stock markets can crash. Real estate can lose value. Even gold prices fall sometimes. That's why protecting your purchasing power isn't a one-time decision. It's a mindset, staying alert, learning, and adjusting as the world changes. In Japan, people faced nearly 20 years of stagnation, called the Lost Decades, where prices barely moved, but the economy weakened. This taught an important lesson. Just keeping money in cash can mean losing out slowly. A financial historian once remarked, "Inflation is patient. It doesn't need to steal everything in a day. Over decades, it chips away at your savings until you wake up to find your dollars can buy half as much." Imagine the relief of seeing your investments outpace inflation, like watching your pizza box refill instead of emptying. That's why some people say understanding inflation is the first step toward freedom. And here's a hopeful truth. The sooner you start paying attention, the more slices you can save. What's the hidden secret to growing your slice again? If you've ever felt like money slips through your fingers faster each year, you're not alone. Almost everyone senses it, but few ever learn why or what to do next. Every example you've heard, Germany's wheelbarrows of bills, Venezuela's sky-high prices, America's shrinking dollar, the quiet tricks of shrinkflation, proves one thing: inflation is always at work. It doesn't announce itself. It moves silently, reshaping your life without asking permission. So how do you protect your pizza? First, you recognize that money loses value over time. Second, you choose tools that grow faster than inflation: investments, skills, and smart spending. And third, you stay watchful, because even experts don't always see it coming. A single US dollar in 1913 had the same buying power as about $28 today. That's a 96% loss over a century. But families who invested in businesses, property, or stocks kept up and often pulled ahead. Economist John Maynard Keynes once said, "The best way to destroy the capitalist system is to debauch the currency." He knew that inflation does what taxes and laws cannot. It changes everything without debate. Imagine sitting at a table with your friends, opening a pizza box, and seeing every slice perfectly intact. No shrinkage, no tricks. That's the power of understanding this hidden force and using it to your advantage. You've already done more than most by listening to this story. You've joined the few who see inflation clearly and know it doesn't have to rule your life. Every choice you make from here, how you save, invest, and spend, will decide whether your slice grows or crumbles. Because in the end, inflation doesn't disappear, but neither does your chance to stay one step ahead. You've unlocked the secret behind every shrinking slice. If you're ready to protect your money and learn even more hidden truths, tap on the screen now. Your next discovery is waiting for you.